It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I am your host this morning. I appreciate you joining with us. Thanks for your attendance. See a ton of you folks out there up in Newtown, and I see you down in Sebastian. I see you over in Springfield. I see a ton of you in West Plains, Branson. I see you folks over in Chicago, in Seattle. Boy, you're up early in the morning. A couple of issues we're going to run over today. Want to make you aware of a couple of things that are happening. We're going to talk about immigration and the fact that the push is on to dramatically change the nature, fundamentally change the nature of the United States of America. They're going to do this via immigration. They're going to do it one way or the other. We better stand up now and speak. In fact, there's a new phrase, a catchphrase I've been posting up on our website and up on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel and so forth. I want you to write it down. I'm going to ask you to get a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to start to use it. I want you to start to use it when you're speaking to people. I want you to put it as a tag at the bottom of your email, at the bottom of your posts on Facebook, or anywhere that you send communications to people. I want you to make sure that this phrase is getting out there. Because what it will do is it will enhearten people to effectively fight back and give them the courage and the strength to recognize that they're not standing alone. And I got to tell you, America, we are really, when I talk about our fourth subject and topic this morning, which is going to be a Washington Times journalist whose confidential files were taken during a raid which was perpetrated based on her husband allegedly having a firearm in the property where they lived, because he is prohibited, or essentially prohibited, although he's really not, from having a firearm. And they use that as a pretext to go in there and raid their home, search their home, and they took confidential files on whistleblowers that she'd been doing stories on about air marshals. I'm going to talk about that later. But I got to tell you, what's happening in America right now is very, very, very dangerous. It is very obvious. And for those who are not aware, I don't understand how America doesn't realize. You no longer have to smell it on the wind, folks. You can now feel the heat on your skin. It's here. It's happening. It's happening right now. Our nation is sliding into tyranny at an escalated and unbelievably rapid velocity. I'm telling you, you need to be aware of what's going on, and you need to awaken those around you within your circle of influence, however small that may be, however large that may be, however minuscule you may believe it is. Now is the time. So I want you to write this phrase down. America, arise, be counted, be fearless, be fierce, be courageous, and speak out, even when your voice shakes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, is the time. I'm going to give it to you again. Please write this down and begin to use it on a routine daily basis. And I don't care if you put it on the back of your car with a magic marker. Get the word out. America, arise. Be counted. Be fearless. Be fierce. Be courageous. And speak out, even when your voice shakes. Especially when your voice shakes. Our first topic this morning is going to be immigration and how they're trying to do that without sealing the border, which will leave us in a compromised position that will only have us coming back to revisit this again 5, 10, 12, 25 years down the road. Same thing happened again, or is happening now, that happened back during the Reagan years. Second topic, healthcare.gov. This is a story I'm going to draw a number of different stories together to give you the facts on this. But I've been telling you all along that Obamacare is not about healthcare. It's about gathering information. It's about siphoning off wealth from the mainstream middle class of America. And then, more importantly, it's about, gaining control. And what I want you to be aware of as we talk about this story is that it's happening right around us right now. The healthcare.gov website is two things. One, it's built on a system which is and this is very interesting. It's built on a system that is run by the CIA on their on a web server piece of software, and I'll explain to you when we get into this topic how this works. Interestingly enough, the two guys who developed this software and then sold it to a defense contractor, which is fronting for the CIA, they both died on September 11th. One in a plane crash on Flight 11, and the second one of natural causes the day after he sold the software to the CIA. And then, to make matters worse, In-Q-Tel, which is a CIA front company that invests in companies to gather and get inside track information on that software or that project or development or product that they're working on, is invested heavily in the software company that actually provides the data collection and the management systems for healthcare.gov and medicare.gov. So what I'm saying is that your data from the day that you start entering information into healthcare.gov is already in the hands of the CIA and the NSA. And it's in their hands all the way through the process because they own the system, the architecture, the delivery mechanism to get that information to the IRS and Department of Social Services and the Social Security Administration and all of these background checking organizations that are all federal government entities. They verify your income, verify your legal status, verify that you actually are a citizen with a Social Security number, et cetera, et cetera. This is proof that Obamacare is not about health care. It is about building a dossier on you. Furthermore, it's also draining the middle class of its wealth. And the goal ultimately here, folks, if you've looked at what's going on with food stamps and the entitlement programs that are out there, this is about overwhelming the national system with entitlements that will break the nation financially. This is classic, empirically proven Cloward and Piven strategy. And I want you to recognize it for what it is. We're going to talk about that when we get to our second segment. Our third segment is the world has gone to the United Nations to obtain a resolution, a resolution to stop the United States from continuing to spy on foreign nations. Now, the important thing about that is that when you talk about, the United States being, well, first of all, never in our history has the United Nations been used in this kind of a format against us. In other words, what we're now seeing is the United Nations, the world is turning to them, and they're corrupt and impotent to begin with, right? But the world is turning to the UN to obtain a resolution that will restrain the United States from violating their individual state sovereignties and national sovereignties and their right to privacy. Ladies and gentlemen, the nation which has been known throughout all of its history as the pillar of liberty and freedom is reduced to being taken out, dragged out to the woodshed, and beaten like a petulant child by the global micro-tyrants that make up the United Nations. It's unbelievable. Our fourth and final segment is going to be this Washington Times journalist who is or has had her files removed from her home during a search that was conducted. That there was and they went to her door, jackbooted thugs, black outfits, armored up, the whole 9 yards, right? And I got to tell you, you don't have to You don't have to sniff around and smell it on the wind. You don't have to look for smoke. The fire is so close, you can feel it. You can feel the heat of it. How much longer before they start coming into a place like my house and taking me away under a false pretense or pretext to get me off the air? How much longer before you start seeing people evaporating, disappearing? I know there are those of you who out there who will say, come on, this is nonsense. Okay, that's fine. You believe that as long as you can. But at some point, you're going to have to acknowledge the obvious. They will use anything and everything to get at people who are in the way. Choose to believe it or not, at some point in time, I'm going to use Ayn Rand's famous phrase, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequence of reality. All right, let's get into our first topic. There is a major push on right now for the United States to get this immigration thing resolved. And business leaders around the nation have been meeting with the White House, and they are trying to get, these business leaders are pushing the United States to get this immigration through because they stand to gain something from it. They're not doing it because they've got some ulterior motive of the benefactor of the world's downtrodden. I mean, let's be honest. They couldn't care less, right? The real problem here is that these business leaders have no honor, they have no integrity, they have no respect, and they have no ethics. They could care less about national sovereignty. They could care less about the protections of our borders. They could care less about nation states. They are willing to sell our nation out. They're willing to sell you out. They're willing to sell out the country that gave them their start, made them great, and all for a couple of quarters of short-term profitability. Let me tell you something. I show them no deference, and you shouldn't either. No bows, no curtsies from the ladies. I stand in direct opposition to what they believe. This is not about profitability. This is about the survival of our nation. And I stand there firmly, boldly, standing in opposition. I'm offering no quarter, and you shouldn't either. We need to put this country back on the straight and narrow relating to this immigration thing. And what that means is that no immigration bill can pass the House, no immigration bill can pass the Senate, and the president may not sign an immigration bill until these borders are independently and verifiably sealed. And all of the illegal immigrants currently in this country, from wherever they come from, have registered and identified themselves and come out of the shadows. Let me tell you something, folks. After that, we can have any discussion that you want. We can have any evaluation of what we should do about those that are here. We can deal with them compassionately. But until that happens, no quarter. We will not, cannot allow another debacle with immigration. We cannot allow chain migration. If you're here, I'm not suggesting we throw all of you on a plane or on buses and truck you over to some border and shoot you off on the other side 30 feet away. I am saying that nothing can happen on immigration in this government, and it's your job to make your representatives aware of it. Nothing can happen until the border is independently, verifiably sealed. When that occurs, after that has occurred, all illegal immigrants, whether they're here on overstayed visas from Istanbul to France to Iceland to Mexico to Bolivia, must register, must come forward out of the shadows and say, I am here illegally, I am registering, and I am indicating my intention that I intend to stay, I would like to, and I will stand up and do whatever is necessary to become a citizen of this nation. After that, we can have any discussion you want. Those who refuse to come forward and register after a period of time, a registration window has expired, will be summarily tossed. That's the penalty for refusing to come out and say, yes, I'm willing to stand up and be a good American citizen, to make amends for breaking your law, to make amends to the American people for violating your national sovereignty. And I want to become an embedded member of your society, a good, tax-paying, hard-working citizen. If that's what you claim to be, then prove it, and prove it now. No immigration until the border is verifiably and independently verified as sealed. Once that has occurred and all illegals have registered, then we can have any discussion you want about how we're going to deal with the 20-some-odd million that are here. They're telling you it's 11.5 million. With all due respect, ladies and gentlemen, they've been telling us it's 11.5 million since the days of Reagan. Are you telling me none of them have had children? Are you telling me that no new ones have come across the border? Are you telling me that those who are here illegally are dying off in equal numbers to those pouring across the border like a horde? I don't think so. I think they're artificially keeping that number depressed and low so that Americans are not outraged to find out that there are 25 million here. It's not 11 million. And the truth is, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 million or 50 million. The simple truth is this. First and foremost, you stop the bleeding. You seal off the border and you lock it down hard. Don't tell me we can't do it. We've been guarding a border of 160 miles with a man stationed at every 15 or 25 feet between North and South Korea for the past 60 years. It's not impossible. Where there's a will, there's a way. We spend and expend and waste and squander trillions of dollars. The news is out yesterday that we have spent in the last 5 years alone $3.7 trillion. $3.7 trillion on poverty and social programs. Ladies and gentlemen, that's greater than half of the total amount that this president alone has added to our national debt. And you're telling me that we can't afford a $5 or a $7 or a $10 billion fence? 2 fences to be precise, 1 fence here and 1 fence there in a big space of no man's land in between. That's how they do it in North Korea. That's how we need to do it here. And then if they reroute around and they try to come in through the northern border with Canada, then we need to do the same thing up there. Our borders are sovereign. Our obligation, our federal government has a duty and an obligation, a constitutionally mandated duty to protect our borders. That is one of the very few enumerated powers they are actually required to follow. Passing this down the river and giving amnesty to another collective group after having done so in 86 with the unmitigated promises of the Democratic Party that we'll seal the border after this. Just make it this one time. Just give them amnesty this one time and we'll take care of it so it'll never happen again. And here we are, 27, 30 years later, revisiting the same issue. And again, the same sophomoric cries. Oh, it's a moral issue. It's all about the children. It's about the babies. How unfair. What are you going to do, rip families apart? No. But we are going to seal the border and we're going to stop the bleeding before we do anything else. And we're not going to fix any boo-boos until the blood has stopped flowing out of the artery. There's an article out there this morning on the National Review. I'm going to read this to you, and then we're going to take a break. This came from Senator Sessions. This is a statement from him. The president said he has not heard any good reason to oppose the Senate bill. Clearly, he has not listened to the ICE and U.S. CIS officers warning that the bill would permanently undermine enforcement. Here are 3 more reasons. The Senate bill will lower wages, increase unemployment, and reduce per capita GNP. All of these statements are confirmed by the Congressional Budget Office. Under current law, we will provide approximately 10 million grants of permanent residency, i.e. green cards, over the next decade. Under the Senate bill, that number will triple to more than 30 million. Further, the Senate bill would double the number of guest workers at a time when a record 90 million Americans are outside of the workforce already. We need to get Americans off of unemployment, off of welfare, and back into the labor force. But the reforms proposed by the Senate would put even more Americans out of work. Many of the same CEOs demanding that Congress increase guest workers are laying off thousands of American workers. This is a defining moment for the House Republicans. They must decide who they represent. Certain activist CEOs lobbying Congress, or the national interest in the millions of Americans struggling to get by in this low-job, low-wage economy. Kudos to you, Senator Sessions, because that, ladies and gentlemen, is the simple truth. He didn't even go far enough. The simple truth is they are laying off tens of thousands of American workers while simultaneously going to the president and saying, we need more labor force. That's not true. They want cheaper labor force. And they're going to fire you to get it. The simple truth is this. These so-called business leaders have no honor and no integrity. They have no respect and they have no ethic. They are more than willing to sell out our nation and our national sovereignty for a short-term boost to their bottom line and their quarterly report. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is unbelievably, I'm going to say it, treasonous. This is the country that enabled them to build their enterprise. This is the nation that gave them their start. This is the nation where they utilized our workforce to build themselves into these great pillars of industry. And now that they are done with us, they want to cast our workers away and hire nameless, faceless automatons. What a shame. What an embarrassment. What a corporatocracy. America, arise, be counted. Be fearless and be fierce. Be courageous and speak out, even when your voice shakes. When you shake with fear, that is the time for you to speak. No immigration until this border is verifiably, independently verifiably sealed. All illegal immigrants have registered. After that, we can have any discussion you want about what to do with those who are already here. And not until. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. Please send me email about this or any other program that we do that you'd like to give me feedback, pro or against, for or against. I want to hear it all. You can send me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. You can also find us on our YouTube channel where we post this and every other show that we do. You can find that by going to youtube.com/America's Voice Now. When we come back, we're going to tackle the subject that is healthcare.gov and how that's riding on a CIA server, and that the company who is handling all of your data is funded by the CIA and the NSA through a company called In-Q-Tel, which many of you will remember from years ago was turned out to be a CIA front organization. We'll be right back.